Hello guys, welcome back to a bit of everything. Just before I start this video, I just want to say thank you to all those who have been following, if you have been following this series on Traxler's defense. I hope you guys have been learning a lot, and let's get into it. Welcome back guys to a bit of everything. In today's video, we're going to be showing you 9 different games for Traxler's defense, as well as showing you what happens if white plays very strongly against this opening, and instead of selling for a loss for black, we can go for at least a draw. Alright, so let's jump right into it. So e4, e5, oops, let's go back, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, knight g5, bishop c5, and then knight takes this f7 pawn here. I know probably by now, if you've been watching our other videos, this is really repetitive. However, apart from looking at the position visually, by also hearing the squares in which the pieces go to, it helps you make better decisions as well during your game. So knight takes f7, bishop takes f2, king takes f2, and knight g5. Knight e4, sorry. So from this position here, white decides to play king e3, queen h4, away from that knight, and queen down to f3. Alright. In this position here, as we can see, with the queen on f3, it's defending the knight, as well as that bishop, defending that knight on f7, and black counters this by replying with knight g5. Knight g5 attacks the knight as well as the queen. And in this position, if white knight does capture the black knight, then queen can reply by taking back and checking the king. Okay, so let's see what white does. Knight g5 and knight takes fg5. As you can see here, black has options to take this bishop here. However, by taking the knight, we also gain a tempo by checking the king as well. Queen can't come down here to defend because it's an easy take right over there. So white will be forced to move its king. So king will move to d3. Alright. From d3, we can start advancing our pawns. So black plays d5. By playing d5, we attack the bishop. If the bishop hesitates and moves away, then this pawn over here can come up, checking the king and winning the queen. Alright. However, white isn't that silly and decides to go for queen g3. Alright. By playing queen g3, it attacks the queen, wanting to trade off, as well as attacking this pawn here on e5 if white is able to get the defense off this knight here on c6. Alright. Black still has the option to take this bishop over here, checking the king. So d takes c4, check. And king will move to c3, to which queen will play f6. So black doesn't want to swap off its pieces yet. The queen's hiding here on f6, allowing later on for this e-pawn to push forward if needed, checking the king. Alright, so after queen f6, white will play its rook to e1, starting to overload the attack on this pawn. However, there's still 2 defenses here for black, which means black is still safe. Black decides to push the pawn forward to e4, checking the king with the queen hiding behind the pawn. So black gains a tempo by moving that there. King will play c4, so taking that pawn, and black quickly replies with queen d4 check. So by playing queen d4 check, it allows black to reposition its queen to keep the defense on this pawn here from that knight, from that rook, as well as moving itself in a better position closer to the king and away from that queen there. So queen d4 check, king will move down to b5, and a6 checkmate, as you can see there. Another easy checkmate as well, instead of a6, is queen down here to b4. King can't escape to a5, cannot take because defended by the knight. Can't move anywhere else, so essentially it is checkmate. So black has a few options there, but the end result is still ultimately a checkmate for white. So in this game over here, I'm going to be showing you a way in which black can win the queen later on when we move our knight to g5. Instead of the knight taking it, white will play the g3 pawn here later on, attacking our queen. It doesn't make sense now, but let me show you the game. So we got e4, e5, same as usual, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, knight g5, bishop c5, knight takes f7, bishop takes, king takes e2, knight takes e4, and king e3. Remember, as usual, queen h4, queen f3, and this is what I mean. So when knight goes to g5, instead of white knight taking that, white will respond by trying to take the queen as well, attacking the queen. In white's eyes, if black takes, white can take, still threatening to attack, and if we move our knight away, white can take that rook on h8. However, in contrast, if rook wants to defend, to be defended or move away from the attack, then king can simply just attack that knight over there. However, black is smarter than this, and instead of going for the quick attack, black will play queen d4 check. So checking the king will move to e2, and a simple win for black to take that knight. So what we can learn from this game is that, I think I've said in past videos before, the threat of an attack is always so much stronger than the actual attack itself. So as you can see here, with g3, we can take that queen straight away. However, sometimes it's better to move a different move. Before that, there's always a better move than what you see in front of your eyes. Of course, here being attacked by the pawn on g3, it's much easier to move your queen away first. And as we can see here, white's king is in a very bad position, which allows black to take advantage by moving its queen to d4, checking, moving away from that pawn being attacked, forces white to move, and we can simply go for that attack over there. Alright, let's look at some other sub-variations of when queen plays f3 and our knight goes to g5. So same as usual, knight f6, knight g5, bishop c5, knight takes f7, takes, and knight e4, check. Alright, as you can see, king plays e3, queen h4, queen f3, and knight g5. So as you saw in the other option, g3, it's not really the strongest move. So white's best move here is always from knight f7 to take that g5 knight. Alright, and regardless of what happens here, this is the sub-variation. So knight f takes g5. Queen will take g5 check. King moves to d3. And d5 will play. Instead of here, I think last move, we saw that queen plays here on g3. But now we'll see white have a bit more common sense in this position and take this pawn over here, bishop d5. Alright, however, our move to play d5 wasn't only just to attack the bishop, It was to gain a tempo by attacking the bishop, forcing it to take, so that we're allowed to utilize our bishop. So bishop f5, check. All right. Bishop f5. However, if we go back a few steps, if we play d5 and queen takes d5, then knight b4 checks both the queen and the king. Alright, so bishop takes, bishop f5, check, and king will move to c3, moving away from both the queen and the bishop's attack. So with the king moving away and this pawn here defending this d4 square, our knight will come up, attacking that queen and threatening to take the c2 pawn over here, which will then allow us to take the rook on a1 later on. So knight d4 attacking the queen. Queen will move to e3, trying to swap off queens. However, black, as usual, doesn't want to swap queens and moves down to e7. Alright, by moving to e7, we're redirecting our focus from the left side of the board now to the right side of the board as we've pushed the king away. This bishop on f5 plays a very important role in cutting off the king's escape, as well as this knight here on d4 also limits the king's escape on the other side. Alright, pretty much in this position, as I've just analyzed, the knight is covering both the b3 square. The queen on e7 is covering this whole diagonal, so d6, c5, b4, and a3. And this bishop on f5 is trying to control the king from coming back into the center again. Alright, so rook e1, white tries to focus its pieces on removing some of these other pieces, attacking it. However, white is tempoed down and queen c5 comes in for a check. Bishop c4 moves, and just to block, as we can see, because there was no space for the king to move, and knight will play b5, checking the king. Of course, bishop can't take because it'll be open check, so king is forced to move instead, b3. And knight will come to d4, check, and king will move back to c3. And as we've said before, a good draw for black, knight b3, and king will move back to b3 as well. Alright, let's take a look at another game. e4, 5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, knight g5, bishop c5, knight takes f7, bishop takes f2, king takes f2, and knight takes e4, king e3, queen h4, queen f3, knight g5, and knight takes g5, queen takes g5, king will move to d3, and d5. King c3 is the new move this time after d5. So from this position here, we can see that white isn't really fussed that he's giving up a piece. As we can see, black just recaptures its lost piece. However, white decides to move his king to c3 instead, so he isn't in threat of any attacks from the queen. Alright, so after king c3, instead of taking this bishop, black decides to play e4, pushing both pawns forward. This e4 pawn is defended by the pawn on d5, and soon enough, as we can see, apart from this pawn attacking the queen on f3, it also blocks the space from white moving back to d3. Okay. So from here, after e4, queen will move to f2, moving one up, so protecting this whole diagonal. Oops. And d will play c4. So black pawn takes that bishop back. King will reply by taking it back, and bishop will move to e6, checking the king. As you can see, the original plan for moving that pawn forward was so that we can at least utilize our bishop if white decides to take the pawn with its bishop. However, a couple of moves before the bishop is actually able to check the king. So after bishop e6, check, king will move back to c3 up here, and queen a5, checking the king. As we can see, the king can't move anywhere, can't move to d3 because of the pawn, can't move to d4 because of the knight, can't move to c4 because of the bishop, can't move to b3 because of the bishop, and also can't move closer to the queen because it will still be in check. So b4 is its only move, and queen just takes that b4, checkmating the king. Showing you another quick sub variation from here: queen f3, knight g5, knight takes g5, and queen takes g5. King moves down to e4. King wants to come into the center. However, he opens himself for a lot of attacks, such as d5, but black doesn't play that straight away. Plays rook f8. So by playing rook f8, this rook here starts to control all the ranks, files. So this whole f file is now secured. Forces queen to move away. So queen plays g3. With g3, although this queen's being attacked, black delays it off first by trying to gain a tempo, checking the king, and bishop just takes back. However, as I've said before, the reason why we play d5 is so that we can also gain a tempo, checking the king and allowing us to utilize our bishop before white makes another attack. Alright, so after bishop d5, bishop takes f5, bishop on f5 check, king will play f3. As we can see, that's its only move. Due to the pawn on e5, bishop on f5, and queen on g5, all blocking its escape route. The only thing with moving to f3 is that white puts himself in a position where black has the advantage of an open check. In this case, lucky the queen isn't on the white square for white, because an easy open check would win the queen. However, let's see what black does in this position. So after king f3, bishop d3 will suffice. So as if blocking up here so the king can't escape up there. Bishop d3, so king can't escape to e2. Bishop f7 will come down to block the rook. However, rook takes f7, queen comes down to f4, and queen f4. As you can see, a little desperado situation here for white, doing anything to survive. However, checkmate is still inevitable. So from here, pretty much white is checkmate, but white delays it off by a further 2 moves. Take and take over there. Easy win for black. Alright, so I'll be showing you a quick game in which if white plays a small blunder with mispositioning its queen, black can fully take advantage and utilize its own position to checkmate the king. Alright, so e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, knight g5, bishop c5, knight takes f7, bishop takes f2, king takes, knight takes, king e3, queen h4, queen down to f3, and knight g5. Alright, knight takes, queen takes, and king moves down to e4. Rook will play f8, and the small blunder As we saw in the last option, queen played to g3. However, this time white plays queen to e2. And can we tell why this is a bad move from white's behalf, on white's behalf? Well, as we can see here in this position, by playing queen e2, it blocks the king's escape route. So if bishop, let's say this this bishop over here on c8 can come in to check the king, let's say g6, it already checkmates the king. Regardless, even if the king was up here on d3, it stops the king from moving up to e2 over here. So it limits, in short, white by playing queen to, oops, let's go back a bit. So take king e3, rook f8, and queen down to e2. As we can see here, in short, by playing queen e2, white essentially limits the white king's ability to move away from danger by limiting the amount of squares the king has for options. So queen e2 and queen f4, checking the king, king d5, and queen d4, checkmate. Another reason why we can say this queen on e2 is a bad move is because it doesn't cover any of these squares around the king, essentially allowing black to come in, play aggressive, and checkmate faster. Alright, so we'll be looking at another game now where black can win white's queen. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, knight takes g5, bishop c5, knight takes f7, bishop takes f2, king takes f2, knight e4. And as we've generally seen, the most popular option for white is to play king e3, and that is because white's best option is actually to play king e3. By playing king g1, you limit yourself to the amount of spaces you can move to, and generally with this open f7 file, black can take advantage of that. As well as the queen coming here, the knight in the center with the other knight that's able to come in, and the bishop also facing to the left side of the board, attacking the left side. Alright, so king e3 is generally the best move for white to play against this opening. However, queen h4, queen f3, knight g5 over here. This time, white doesn't want to take it, wants to play queen g3. Alright, as we've seen before, queen d4 check, and king will play e2. So king escapes up. Black goes for another check by taking that bishop, c4 check, gaining a tempo, and king will move to d1, hiding away from all attacks. And here knight will take f7. So we can see now that white is now up by a piece. And actually, yeah, up by a piece. Alright, so knight takes f7, and white will reply with d3, attacking the queen and allowing breathing room for this bishop that hasn't been utilized yet. So queen will move down to e6, just down here, in preparation to move the pawn forward to d5, hopefully controlling the center. Knight c3, so white's now developing its other pieces, and our knight plays to d4, coming into the center, controlling. As you can see with this knight here, we are attacking that c2 pawn, as well as defending that e2 square over there. Alright, queen will play g7, free pawn down there, and we will play knight f5. Also in anticipation, black will move to move to d4 so that it can come down to f5 later on, attacking the queen. Knight will come down after queen g7, knight goes to f5, and queen will go back to g4, coming up there, moving away from the attack, pinning this knight now as well. However, the queen behind the knight is defended by the pawn on d6. However, by positioning the queen over at g4, if we do tend to move this pawn away, we do risk, actually we don't, because the bishop here on c8 is still defending the queen. Alright, so after queen g4, knight will play e3, checking the king as well as attacking the queen. However, bishop can just take e3 and we can take that queen over there. As you can see, by playing knight e3, first of all, it does look like we tried to attempt to double the king and the queen. However, we forget that the queen here on e6 is still hiding behind our knight as well. So as much as this queen is pinning kind of the knight, it actually works the other way around in our favor. So, and here we can see the queen has no defense, which allows an easy capture for black. If here white doesn't resign yet, or doesn't take the loss, accept the loss, it's only a matter of moves before white resigns. If not, gets checkmated. Alright, as we said before, the best move for white after the knight goes to e4 is to play king e3. However, in this option, we'll quickly show you what happens when king will play g1. Alright, so e4, e5, knight f3, standard opening as usual, takes, bishop takes, king takes, knight takes e4, and as I said, king e3 is the best move. However, king g1 in this case. Queen h4 is exactly the same, and queen f1, to which we play our rook on f8, pinning this knight. Alright, d3 will be played, attacking the knight, as well as trying to open some breathing room for the bishop, and knight will just go down to d6, attacking the knight, as well as attacking the bishop as well. Knight will take d6, checking the king, however opens its path for the rook to take the queen. However, black can't do that yet, so c takes d6, and queen will move to e2 away from the attack, to which knight will play d4, coming into the center, attacking the queen, gaining a tempo because queen has to move again. So queen will play d2 and queen will come up to g4 here. As you can see, with queen g4, we're positioning the queen to be able to move our knight from this d4 square to f3. Then the pawn won't be able to take the knight on f3 because it will open check, allowing black to check the king and attack the queen at the same time. Alright, so after queen g4, white plays g3 and knight comes up there anyway, so an easy win. However, if h3, knight goes f3 as well, still check, because its king moves away. It can't escape down here to h2 because of the knight, so its only option is to move to this f file, in which our rook is already positioned on f8 to go for another attack when the knight moves, so checking the king. If white king moves away, then we can simply move our piece away from the attack of that h3 pawn. But as you can see here, white played a much slightly, I will say, a weak move in this position, and knight just comes up to f3 and you win the queen. So for this last game, I'm going to show you white plays exceptionally well in defending. However, black is always at advantage, and if black is able to make a couple of good moves, or if white blunders, then black is able to win. However, if white plays just as strong, the game will end in a draw. So let's get into it. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, knight g5, bishop c5, knight takes f7, bishop takes f2, king takes f2, knight takes e4, and king g1 hiding in the corner. As much as I've said that king g1 is a weak move, in this case, let's have a look and analyze to see how white can defend itself. So king g1, queen h4, g3, attacking the queen, knight will take g3, and knight takes h8. Alright, after knight takes h8, knight d4 coming up. We don't care about moving our knight away yet, because if h takes our knight, then our queen will come up and the king will ultimately be exposed, and allows us for plenty of checks and winning a lot of pieces, especially with this bishop here undefended on c4. So black plays knight d4 instead, and h will take g3. Queen will then take g3, and king will play f1. Normally our rook here on h will be able to move to f, but since the knight's already taken it, we'll say after king f1, queen will play f4, check. King will move to g2, and queen will move to g5, check. King will move to h2, and queen will move to h4, check. As you can see, it's really hard for black to get a win in this position. However, it is also true to say that it's very difficult for white to get an advantage as well, especially in the position that the king is in. So queen h4, king will move to g2, and after king g2, queen will play g5. So essentially, as long as we're staying in the black squares, it's check for white. So queen g5, king will play f1, and queen f4, check. King will move down to g1, and queen can play g3, check. King f1, and queen f4. We really can't take advantage of this situation because the knight has already taken a rook, as well as this bishop is underdeveloped yet. By playing d5, we kind of lose the tempo, and by losing a tempo, it may allow white to get a good comeback, especially with the amount of pieces that white already has. Sometimes it's always better to settle for a draw, especially if you're playing against someone who's very strong. I think a draw would suffice. But as you can see, here in this position, white's king is fully exposed, and there's no way that white can come back as long as the queen is always staying on the black square, checking the king. See, even here, white can't even defend because there's no other pieces defending that square apart from the queen. And the king can't escape down here to the white square. So, a couple of checks here and there, no matter where white plays, it'll always be check and will lead to a draw. Anyways, thank you very much guys for watching. This video is intended for all those who really want to learn the opening for Traxler, and hope you guys learned something today. We'll see you in the next video.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. Good tidings. we won't